Everyone, LeoBlade13 here, welcoming you back to another Dragoborne Let's Talk. So today we're taking a look at all the blue creatures that are left from Oath of Blood. So let's jump right into this. First up we have May, Whimsical Caper. She's a 3-drop with 3 attack, 3 endurance, and her ability is when she is summoned, you can choose 2 opposing creatures and exchange their positions. So I really like this because we had Displacer from Rally to War, but that didn't really see much play. Much because it was just a spell that switched spots, but this is a creature that you're getting on board, and then it has that ability where you can switch them. So it's like the spell card, but in creature form, which I really like, and I think this is going to be a decent card. I don't think it's going to get played all the time, but it might be really helpful to get around Teriel, because we know yellow-green is going to be a deck, and this might be one way to out it. But overall, I really like this card. I think it is pretty decent for what it does. Next up, we have the Overseer, who is a 5-drop 5/5, and gives all of your other homunculi +2/+2. And then she also has the Blue Dragocross ability, and that gives all of your homunculi the ability when they attack, draw a card. So there's some really good homunculus support in this set. I think Caretaker is going to be a really good card, which is the promo from the sneak peek. So if you can pick those up, if you plan on playing this deck. But I feel like the deck is going to center around Overseer if that's what they're going for. And so that would make getting Overseer out more important. And so I think she could have been a 4-drop. We had Burbo from Rally to War for the red creatures, and I think him being a 3-drop was decent, and even then, he wasn't there all the time, and you never really wanted to summon him unless you needed to. So with the Overseer being a 5-drop, I'm not sure how good that's actually going to be. Next up, we have Amnat the Omniscient, who's a 4-drop with 3 attack, 5 endurance, with the ability Siphon X. Look at X cards from the top of your deck, and if you siphoned a non-blue dice for this ability's cost, put any number of cards from among them on the bottom of your deck in any order. Put the rest of the cards on top of your deck in any order. So you can essentially set up what you draw. If there's something you don't like, you just stick it on the bottom. So it does have a lot of good potential, but then it also has the Blue Dragocross ability, which is when this creature attacks, name a card and reveal the top card of your deck. If it's the named card, put it into your hand. So essentially a free draw because you know what you're going to be drawing. So I do like this card, however, I don't think it's really that great. I probably won't be playing it in any of my blue decks. Next up we have the Gardener, who is a 2-drop with 1 attack and 3 endurance. So we've been seeing a lot of creatures with 1 attack, 3 endurance in this set so far. So I think Carefree Orc might drop in relevance. There's not too much stuff with 1 attack except for maybe some of the aggro cards, but this is a homunculus with the ability Siphon a blue 2. Look at the top card of your opponent's deck and put it on the top or bottom. This ability can only be used once per turn. So you can look at their next card that they're going to be drawing, and then choose whether or not you want them to be able to draw it. So if it was something weak and this is late game, you'll probably keep it on top. If it's Zarko, Fafnir, anything like that, it'll probably go on the bottom so that they don't see it. But I think this card definitely has a lot of good utility, and with it only being a 2-drop, it can come out on the first turn, which I really like. Next up, we have Gorgoth the Devourer, who is a 6-drop with 3 attack, 4 endurance, but his ability is, as you pay the cost of this creature, you may siphon up to 3 and reduce the cost to play it by the siphoned amount. So you can potentially play it as a 3-drop, and then when this creature is destroyed by an opposing spell or ability, draw a card, so just some immediate replacement. And then when it's Dragocrossed, this creature cannot be blocked by creatures with cost less than this creature's cost. And I believe it stays a 6 cost when it hits the field, so can't be blocked by a lot of stuff, which is really cool. I mean, if this is late game, there are going to be some things that can block it, but summoning this early game for a 3 cost is going to be pretty good. Then we have the first daughter, which was actually talked about in last Friday's Dragobites video. So it's a 5-drop with 4 attack, 4 endurance, with the ability when a creature is summoned, if its attack is less than this creature's attack, rest it. So that's going to put a huge amount of pressure on your opponent because they won't be able to summon anything small. They won't be able to summon Teriel and block with it. Trying to think of other defensive cards, but nothing's coming to mind. But even aggressive cards like Hurst, however you say that, the new red double rare, she needs to attack in order to summon a card if it's a 2 or less, and she's not going to be able to do that if the first daughter is on the field. But the one downside of this is that it does hit your cards too. So the way to get around that is using its second ability, which is when it is blue Draco crossed, you can siphon 3, choose one of your creatures that was summoned this turn, and stand it. So that does allow you to kind of play around its own ability. I just wish it would have been kind of less of a cost. Like maybe siphoning 1 just to let you benefit off of it. I think 3 is kind of steep. But one other important thing to note, if it is Drago crossed, then it's going to affect anything with 5 or less, or just less. So if it's 4 or less, and it's Drago, sorry, this is the most confusing sentence I've ever said. If it is Drago crossed, all creatures summoned with 4 or less attack will be rested, and if it's not Drago crossed, any creature with 3 or less. So moving on, we have Merfolk Tinker, who is a 3-drop with 2 attack, 4 endurance, and when this creature is summoned, look at 3 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and put any number of cards from among them on the top of their deck in any order, and put the rest of the cards well, first sneeze on camera, and put the rest of the cards on the bottom of their deck in any order. So it's essentially what the Gardener does, except you get to choose what goes on the top and bottom. So I like this because you can choose what their next resource color is going to be. If this is late game and they aren't getting a lot of one color, maybe you keep that color like on the top of their deck so they don't resource it. But then it also has a blue drag across ability, which is Siphon 3. Your opponent puts the top card of the deck into the discard pile. So I think this is going to be really huge against like the End of Tides or something, where you stick a vessel or the End of Tides on top of the deck and then send it to the graveyard. But if they're playing red, there is going to be ways to add it back to their hand. But I really like the utility that's in this card, and I'm sure it might see some play, I don't know how much. But next up we have the Quartermaster, who is the blue dice changer. So you can change a dice to make it equal to your blue, or change your blue to make it equal to another. So I actually have quite a fondness for these cards after the sneak peek. But next up we have Be Manticore, who is a 4-drop with 3 attack, 3 endurance, in the ability when this creature is summoned, if you have a black or red creature, choose an opposing creature, rest it, and that creature does not stand during your opponent's next stand step. So I really like this. This has no limitation to what creature can be chosen, so you can choose something really big, such as Terax if you don't want that to attack, well, if Terax isn't Draco Crossed, really bad example. One of the Elder Dragons. You could choose an Elder Dragon and rest that, and then it can't stand, so it loses another turn essentially, which is really cool. Then we have the Healer, who's a 3-drop with 2 attack, 2 endurance, and when it's summoned, if you have a green or yellow creature, draw a card. So, not too fond of this card. I mean, yeah, drawing is nice, but I think there's better cards that can be used in a blue-green-yellow deck. We've got Tijs Rogue, just a vanilla, 3-drop with 3 attack, 4 endurance. And then the Potioner, so another Homunculus, same with the Healer, that was also Homunculus. But she's a 2-drop with 2 attack, 1 endurance, and when she's summoned, if you have a non-blue banner, look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top or bottom of your deck. So being able to choose your next draw, which is kind of cool. And it is kind of interesting that you have to have a non-blue banner. So you aren't going to be able to play mono blue if you want to run her, you're going to have to run another color, so I don't know what would pair well with that. But it'll be interesting to see what this deck shapes up to be. Then we've got Tijs or Cannoneer. So when this creature attacks, if you have a non-blue banner, your opponent puts 2 cards from the top of their deck into the discard pile. So with this and the mermaid that we saw a couple cards ago, I think milling is going to start to be a thing, which I really don't want to see, especially against a machine deck, because machines send all their cards to the graveyard. So you're going to have these decks running around sending more cards to the graveyard. So I think machines might have a hard time against that, but anything else might be fine, at least for now. But it is a 2/2/2, so pretty nice stats. Then we've got Tide Chaser Grunt, just a 1-drop with 2 attack, 1 endurance. Then we have Augment, so into the spells now. It is a 2-drop spell, and you can look at all the barriers on one of your forts, put any number of cards from among them into your discard pile, and for each card put into your discard pile, put the top card of your deck on that fort as a barrier, and then draw a card. So it just allows you to kind of reset your fort and maybe set up some more fort bursts if you get lucky enough. But I think this is a really cool card. Just interesting in its effect. Not that it's going to be relevant in any ways, but it may be used in a machine deck because you're sending stuff to the graveyard and it'll get your End of Tides there that you can add back to your hand. So we'll see if this ends up shaping up to be anything. Then we have Sabotage, which is another 2-drop, and as part of the cost to play the spell, Siphon X. Then you can choose an opposing die and reduce its value by X. And then if you have a blue 1/2, you get to choose one of your dice and change it to a 6, and then Siphon X. So, with that blue 1/2, you'd be able to siphon any number to get rid of any of your opponent's dice, which is going to be really cool in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see if it's used, but if you roll that blue 1/2, there's already a dice that you can change to 6, so that ability is not really going to be dead if you have that 1/2. And then our last card is Seafarers End, which is a 3-drop spell, and as part of the cost to play the spell, choose one of your creatures and return it to your hand. Your opponent chooses one of their creatures and returns it to their hand. So it'll allow you to get some more on summon abilities, like maybe Vessel of the End, return it to your hand if you summoned it prematurely. And then it also has the Fort Burst ability, put this card in your discard pile. You may choose one of your creatures and return it to your hand. If you do, your opponent chooses one of their creatures and returns it to their hand. So essentially the same effect, but I kind of like this card. I think it is fair, and it'll be interesting to see if it gets any use. I mean, you're going to be able to trigger any of your own summon abilities again, which is kind of cool. But let me know what card was your favorite, and be sure to check out Dragoborn where you can see all of these images. And also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as follow me on Twitter. But as always, thanks for watching.